Piper, our newest vocation, will be giving her testimony.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
As Mother Foundress said, my name is Piper Klatt. I am the newest affiliate member of the Women of Jesus' Merciful Passion, and I'll be giving my testimony today. I'm 24 years old, and I'm originally from Grand Rapids, Minnesota. I'm the second oldest of 5 children. I have a big brother who I consider to be one of my best friends, and I was blessed with 3 little sisters who are my everything. I love being their big sister. We were raised Catholic since birth, and we're blessed with a mom and a dad who are devout and very much in love with the Catholic faith. Growing up in small-town Minnesota, my family was always very active in our parish, which was St. Joseph's Catholic Church. For many years, my mom was our youth minister, and from the moment me and my sisters learned that we could hold a tune, we were singing in the church choir. Across town, we all attended St. Joseph's Catholic School, where I believe that we got a great faith-filled education. Unfortunately, there were no Catholic junior highs or high schools in my town, but we got the opportunity to attend Wednesday night formation classes at St. Joe's. And I always looked forward to it because our youth minister was amazing. And I might be a little biased because she was my mom, but she was very good at her job. Despite this great Catholic education that I received, I can recall from a very young age the adversary trying to work overtime to get me to fear the Lord, and not the holy, healthy fear of the Lord. But I started to believe the little lies that were being whispered to me, that if I did one little thing wrong, I'd be sent where, because God is just. I was terrified of going to confession because my young mind didn't quite understand that God was a merciful Father. But I remember a lesson my mom gave to our faith formation class about the Sacrament of Reconciliation. She said that we should go and receive confession out of love and respect for God, and 13-year-old me was mortified. And I remember on our drive home, I said, "Mom, I go out of fear of getting sent to hell, not because I love God." And I don't believe that this mindset was the fault of my parents or teachers. I just think that in my own broken nature, I had conceived of this distorted image of who God was, which is it's a sad side effect of sin that's been passed down since Adam and Eve. In the garden, it wasn't God's existence that Satan made them doubt. It was God's trustworthiness. And Satan played the same game with me. I realized I didn't trust God very much at all. But looking back now, I can see how, just as God did throughout all of salvation history with Israel, he reached out to me in mercy and began the long process of winning my heart and my trust. And I can recall the first day he planted that seed of mercy. I was at faith formation, and our group leader rolled in the TV. And when she turned it on, I could not believe my ears. It was EWTN, and for the first time in my life, I was listening to the Chaplet of Divine Mercy, and it was being sung. Not only was the prayer beautiful, but the tune was so catchy that I knew in my soul this was a prayer that I was going to sing till the day I die. And this was just the beginning of a long theme of divine mercy that God would thread throughout my life. My home parish was located in the Diocese of Duluth, Minnesota. And when I was still in high school, God sent a wonderful priest named Father Mike Schmitz into my life. Father Mike taught me so much about God's love and his abundant mercy. And he was the one God sent to me to help me not fear going to confession, and I thank God every day for him. After having been given the opportunity for a few years to be in the worship band and a junior counselor at Father Mike's Catholic summer camp, he told me about a little college in Ohio called Franciscan University of Steubenville. This passionately Catholic college put on youth conferences all around the United States, and there just so happened to be one in Minnesota that year. My mom gathered us all up, and I went into it not knowing the huge impact God had in store for my soul. I remember 2 things from that conference. 1, the praise and worship was mind-blowing, and I wanted to be up there on stage with them. And 2, there was a talk given by a religious sister that moved my heart deeply. She spoke of our God as a Father who burns with love for us and wants nothing more than to gain our trust and make us truly happy. She explained how throughout all of salvation history, God is seen time and time again, trying to get us to not be afraid of him and to trust in his love and goodness by showing infinite mercy towards us, not because he has to, but because he wants to. And I'm not sure why it took till this sister explaining it for the truth about who God was to click in both my mind and my heart. Maybe it had to do with her captivating love for the Lord, her radiant joy, or her complete trust in him. Honestly, it was probably all three. I acknowledged right then and there that this sister had something that I did not have, and deep down I had wanted it so badly. After her talk, she asked if there were any young ladies in the audience who had felt the call to religious life or just wanted to know more information to come up to the stage and get it. And even though I had never even considered religious life for myself, I sensed God say to me, "Get up and follow me." It was like there was an invisible string attached to my ribcage, because I got right up and went without a second thought, and I can still remember the look on my mom's face. Pure shock. The seed had been planted, but after that conference, I decided I just had to go to Franciscan University. And for the first time in my life, at age 18, I moved states away from my whole family to live on a campus where I didn't know a single person. And that first semester was nothing like I had expected. It was one of the hardest times in my life. And it was disheartening because I was on this beautiful campus where God was present in every chapel and in every dorm, and I was surrounded by literally hundreds of Catholics my age, but for some reason I had felt so distant from God. I was lonely, and I was so homesick that I probably would have left after that first semester if God hadn't reached out to me in mercy and sent me a lifeboat. One Saturday, I can remember praying in the chapel just down the hall from my room and begging God if he could even hear me, if he could just please send some people into my life, even just one, who could help me feel at home here. And at 3 p.m. that day, a small women's household entered the chapel and started singing the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and it felt like my soul had been lit on fire. They invited me to join them for their Lord's Day, and I found out that they were called the Daughters of Divine Mercy. They had a strong devotion to the message of divine mercy and shared with me their charisms, which were trust in the Lord, passionate joy, and redemptive suffering, which all really spoke to my heart. And it wasn't long at all before I decided to become a daughter of divine mercy. It was these ladies who truly introduced me to the diary of St. Faustina, who I immediately fell in love with. And it was through the messages of mercy that Jesus revealed to her that I grew in my understanding and love for our merciful Lord and his message of divine mercy. In the spring of 2017, a group of about 150 Franciscan students had the opportunity to study abroad in Austria for a semester. On March 25th, the school took us to a trip to Poland, where we got to visit the Divine Mercy Shrine in Krakow. We had the chance to enter the small church, consecrated in 1891 and dedicated to St. Joseph, which was built within the complex of the convent of the Sisters of Our Lady of Mercy, which was St. Faustina's order. I can picture it now. Jesus was exposed in the most blessed sacrament of the altar. The Divine Mercy Chaplet was being recited, and people were lined up all along the side of the little chapel, waiting to have their chance to kneel and pray in front of the image of Divine Mercy. When it was my turn, I knelt in front of the image, and in the depths of my soul, I heard God calling me to follow him by following in the steps of St. Faustina. The call was undeniable, and I went back to my pew to pray. And after the initial shock of it all and a good cry, I turned to my close friend and I said to her, "I think God is calling me to religious life." But in my stubbornness, I wasn't quite ready to answer the call. I graduated from Franciscan in 2019, and at the advice of nearly all my college professors, I went on to graduate school to get my master's degree. Seemingly on a whim, my parents decided to move to New Hudson, Michigan, with my youngest sister. So I moved with them, and having the desire in my heart to continue receiving a Catholic education, I attended Madonna University in Livonia, Michigan. Now, unfortunately, over the course of that school year, many things happened that made my spiritual life and relationship with God suffer. To distract myself, I was filling my days to the brim with reading, studying, homework, and work in general, and quite honestly, I wasn't giving God or the vocation He had placed on my heart the time of day. Then the most unexpected thing happened. The entire world shut down. COVID-19 took the world by storm, and almost overnight I had no work. I still had class, but everything was moved online, which no one was prepared for, so the workload seemed to go from grueling to almost non-existent. And all of a sudden I had all the time in the world and nothing to distract myself from the state that I was in. I can remember one night in particular that I couldn't sleep because I was in the throes of despair and experiencing a loneliness that put my first semester at Franciscan to shame. I felt so far from God that it was unbearable, and in the midst of my sorrowful tears, I literally cried out the name of Jesus and begged Him to help me. And that night, He granted me a great grace of divine mercy. He brought me face to face with the state of my soul, which was not good, and instilled in me true sorrow for my sins and the ardent desire to receive the Sacrament of Reconciliation as soon as possible. Once again, in my soul, I heard Jesus beckoning me, "Get up and follow me." And I can chuckle about it now, but at the time I thought, Lord, follow you where? We're in the midst of a pandemic, and technically I'm not even supposed to leave my house. But He made it very clear. I found a parish in Plymouth called Our Lady of Good Counsel, which is a fitting name because Our Lady counseled me good. They had outdoor mass and kept their Eucharistic Adoration Chapel, which happened to be called St. Joseph's Chapel, open throughout the pandemic. So I received the Sacrament of Reconciliation, and I started visiting the Blessed Sacrament every single day. It was in going to adoration, praying the Rosary, and singing the Chaplet of Divine Mercy daily that I finally experienced true fulfillment. This was how God put all my broken pieces back together and spiritually healed me. The call to religious life was now back in my heart full force, and God's words were so sweet. But I was feeling incredibly conflicted because I was mere weeks away from graduating from graduate school. And I'd pray earnestly to God, asking Him, Lord, do I give up or do I go and get a job in my field that I just spent 5 years of my life studying for? Or do I give it all up and enter religious life? I had told my parents about this inner conflict I was experiencing, and I thank God that they were incredibly supportive of either decision. They just wanted me to do the will of God. And I remember my mom saying to me, Piper, if you apply for jobs in your field and it isn't God's will for your life, He won't allow any job opportunities to present themselves to you. Pray for God's will to be known and trust in Him. So that's exactly what I did. Every day after graduation, I was job searching and filling out applications, but my soul was growing increasingly restless. And I kid you not, after months of searching and filling out job applications, I never received a single call back for an interview. Not one, just as my mom had said. Strangely, I didn't feel discouraged. On the contrary, actually. Over those months, I continued to go to adoration daily, and I was falling in love. I'd ask Jesus, Lord, does this truly mean what I think it means? Are you calling me to be a religious sister? And His answer was yes. So 6 years after He planted that initial seed, I finally gave my yes to Him in return. The only problem is, I didn't know where to begin looking. I just knew that I wanted the community to have a devotion to the Blessed Sacrament and to divine mercy. So I began praying a 54-day Rosary Novena to Our Lady to help guide me where to go. And the Lord, being the epitome of obedient Son, handed me my answer on a silver platter. At this time, we were back at work, and I was working 2 jobs. I was waitressing at the Breakfast Club in Novi, and I was also a beauty advisor at Ulta Beauty. One day, one of the servants of Jesus of the Divine Mercy's very own, Vicky Serwick, came in to the Breakfast Club for some breakfast. We began talking about our faith because she was clearly a practicing Catholic in her servant's attire, and I shared with her that I was discerning and have a strong devotion to divine mercy, and her eyes lit up. She said to me, "Have you ever heard of the Divine Mercy Center?" She proceeded to tell me about foundress Catherine Lonnie and the emerging women's community that had a deep devotion to the message of divine mercy, and my soul lit on fire. I had no idea that a place like this existed, so close to where my parents randomly decided to move to, or so it had seemed random at the time, but I see it was part of God's plan. Long story short, Vicky said, "Stay right here. I'm going to go home and grab you an informational packet." And so she went home and drove all the way back just to give me that packet with Sister Carla's number on it, and I have it to this day. I reached out to Sister Carla to schedule a time to come out and visit, and I was so excited. A few days before I was to go and visit the center, I was in the main sanctuary at Our Lady of Good Counsel singing the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and when I finished praying, I opened my eyes and 3 people were walking over to me. They introduced themselves, and the First Lady looked at me and said, "So you're discerning?" I was a little taken aback by this, because it was the last thing I was expecting someone to assume about me. As I had mentioned, I was a beauty advisor at Alta, where it was literally part of the job description to do your hair and makeup for work every day. So I had a full face of makeup on, false eyelashes on, and enough hairspray in my curled hair to rival Farrah Fawcett herself. But I answered, "Yes, I am." The second lady, who happened to be Jeannie Hartner, the daughter of Donna Hartner, asked me, "Have you ever heard of the Divine Mercy Center?" And all 3 of them raved about it. At this point, I said, "Okay, God, I hear you loud and clear." The day came for me to come and visit the center, and the moment I arrived on the grounds, I experienced a deep and abiding sense of peace that I had not felt in a very long time, if ever. I met the lovely Sister Sarah and Sister Carla, and we got along great. They gave me a tour of the grounds. They explained their mission of spreading the message of divine mercy, their charisms of holy hospitality and spiritual direction, and their postulate, which all really spoke to my heart. I got to meet Mother Foundress, who was so welcoming and inspirational from the get-go. And if that wasn't enough, she had just gotten one of the cutest puppies I had seen in a very long time, Serena Rose. And I said, "God, if this is where you're leading me, you're spoiling me big time." For the next 6 months, I discerned with the sisters, and I attended every eval meeting they had. They were the only community out of the many that I had reached out to that allowed me to come and visit in person, regardless of the pandemic, which was exactly what I needed. In February, they were kind enough to allow me to come and spend the weekend in person for their Come and See retreat. And it was that first night here that God spoke to my soul saying, "This is where you're meant to be. Surrender your life to my will." So, on March 25th, 2021, in the year of St. Joseph, in the month of St. Joseph, on the feast day of the Annunciation, and exactly 4 years to the day that I felt God calling me to religious life while I was in Poland, I had the honor of giving my fiat to God, just as the Blessed Mother did all those years ago when she bore divine mercy itself in her womb. I've now been here for a little over 2 months. I've learned so much about the sisters' daily life, their mission, their apostolate work, and there is still so much more for me to learn. I mentioned in the beginning how much I love being a big sister, but in this new chapter of my life, God has given me 2 big, capital S sisters who are patient, loving, and kind. And I couldn't be more thankful or excited to continue serving God right alongside them here at the Shrine of Jesus, the Divine Mercy. Thank you very much, and God bless you all.